counter/intuitive. Slightly different subtitle, how we think about uncertainty in poker business and life. And for those of you who have to go before 10 o'clock, let me tell you my key message. Exactly what I'm going to build up to in about 54 minutes' time is that uncertainty is good. We need uncertainty. It brings us joy and pleasure and meaning and profit. So let me just start by getting us all to agree on one thing. No one likes uncertainty. Nobody here in this room likes uncertainty, and therefore I want to make the next 53.5 minutes of your life as certain as I possibly can. How am I going to do that? I'm going to give you a roadmap, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start off by asking, what is uncertainty? Before we're asking, where does it come from? What causes it? What are its effects on us as individuals, as organizations? What do we do about it, therefore, as a result? Before looking at what we should do about it from the perspective of a professional poker player. That'll be all very well, but we'll be sitting there at that point with about 10 minutes to go and we'll be thinking, that's not good enough. There are things that stop us from embracing this thing called uncertainty, and we need to look at those and how we can break through them. So, we've got 53 minutes left, 224 slides to get through. That's not a joke. Let's start off by asking, what is uncertainty? If I had to ask all of you here in this room, what would you say? It's the unpredictable, it's the unknown. I want to define it as a state or a condition that we live with every single moment where we do not know exactly what the future holds. And as I've already said, that's frustrating for us. In fact, part of the reason we've come here for these 2 days is to talk about that, is to try and understand what the future might hold, to get some sense of it, even though, deep down, we have to admit we're not sure. So uncertainty is all-pervading, but it's interesting, therefore, to note that he doesn't suffer for it, not in the same way that we do. In fact, more interesting still, a much closer relation of ours, he doesn't suffer from uncertainty in the same way, just doesn't get anxious about the future, doesn't think about it at all. Why not? He's built slightly differently to us. He's got a different brain. I mean, we're 98% genetically similar, but that's the brain of a human being next to the brain of a chimpanzee, and whilst they're structurally similar, there are crucial differences. That size creates a much greater neocortex. That's the ropey bit around the outside, and it's there that about 1.5 million years ago, we started uniquely as a human being to think about the future. We started to analyze the situation, the state that we were in, and ask, what does that mean? And that was important because, as anyone here who's ever been on a safari knows, it's a very confusing place. That's what we were trying to adapt to. When you see a lion out there in the wild, it doesn't look like that. If it did, it would be much easier. It doesn't. It looks more like that. It's out there in the distance, and you have to make a decision, right? Which is very similar to the decisions that you all have to make when you leave this room about what to do. Because you've been out there hunting for the last 2 days and you've got your prey on your back and you're asking yourself, is he hungry? Is he going to attack me? I'm not entirely sure. We started thinking in depth and analyzing much more. The days turned into nights, turned into weeks, turned into months. And we wanted to know what that future held for us. And so it's no surprise that belief systems started to bubble up in the gaps. We started to get religion. We started to get methods, people who claimed that they could predict this uncertain future for us. With mixed success, you might put faith and story in that. That's absolutely fine. Some of you think it's a bit of fun. But about 300 years ago, it started to get some structure. The Renaissance threw up a branch of mathematics called probability theory, which allowed us to think about the future with some sort of certainty because it had numbers, it had probabilities attached to it. And that was great, but I wonder, ladies and gentlemen, I wonder if it's a false sense of security in a way. I'll give you an example of how a number, a fact, can be very misleading. Do you want to know the most dangerous sport in the UK by death rate? The most dangerous sport in the UK by death rate is crown green bowling. Now, this is not a dangerous sport. I've just seen it played up at Balboa Park. It looks exactly the same here in the States, but it tends to be played by old people who have a propensity to die sooner. We can all think of much more dangerous sports, can't we? And I'm not thinking about this kind of thing. I'm thinking about, Olympic sports, where terrible things can happen. Dangers are everywhere in our lives. Don't get me started on skiing. I mean, God, the day before you even get on the slopes, ladies and gentlemen, terrible things can happen to you. The all-American sport of baseball, treacherous. I don't want even to be in the crowd. Things can happen to us. Risks obviously are everywhere in this uncertain world, I'm sure we can agree. And therefore, it was quite interesting to me. It was quite interesting that for 3 years of my life that I spent out in Las Vegas, people would constantly ask me, how can you take these risks? How can you put yourself in such an uncertain world? Because, I mean, compared to these things, I'm in the safest place I could possibly be. I'm sure many of you here have been to Las Vegas. There I am in a climate-controlled, smoke-free environment in the poker room. I'm protected by one of the world's biggest private police forces. Almost nothing can happen to me. But I understand. I understand why we think it's risky, why we think it's uncertain, because I'm dealing with a very naked form of uncertainty. I want to argue today that actually we're dealing with it every single day of our lives, but most of the time in our lives it's hidden to us. And in poker, it's bare. It's there in the middle of the table. It's the turn of a card.